Good morning, students. Thank you for your patience in getting started, and thank you for attending this wonderful event. Those of you who've been attendance yesterday, we just want to reiterate those rules we have in place for our distinguished guests. Okay, we want to make sure you get the most out of this presentation and this powerful lecture series. Okay, so throughout this presentation, please do not use your phones, do not take pictures. There'll be an opportunity for that afterwards to speak with the lecturer and Ms. Kate. Okay. Please do not exit during the process of the lecture, and at the end, we will exit through the back doors the same as yesterday. Okay? So try not to talk throughout, be respectful, and you'll get the maximum through this powerful series. Okay? Without further ado, I want to invite Dr. Mike Gallimore onto the stage, our Assistant Vice President of Academic Affairs, and then we'll get started. Thank you very much.
Okay, good morning. How's everyone?
Fine, thank you.
First of all, thank you for your attendance, and thank you to all of you that engaged in the great event yesterday. I'm sure you'll agree it was a really inspiring and a really fantastic event, and great to have our two guests on campus. So it's with immense pleasure that I introduce our esteemed guest, Ms. Kate Daudy. Kate is a London-based, world-renowned visual artist whose work is a compelling vehicle for conveying the importance of communication and human connection. From her art on the canvas of a tent at the Satari refugee camp in Jordan to a map of London produced for Selfridges, Kate's art shares a message of profound hope, even in the most uncertain of times. As a peace advocate, Kate utilises her work to underscore the underlying truth that we are all connected. Highlights of her work include exhibitions for Saatchi Gallery, South Bank Centre and St Paul's Cathedral in London, as well as global exhibits in Granada, Madrid, New York, Palermo, Paris and Jordan, and has been named as a visionary by the well-known designer Louis Vuitton. She is an artist, humanitarian and philanthropist. And in the words of Philippa Adams, director of the Saatchi Gallery in London, she holds up a mirror to the world, raising questions that bring introspection and remind us of our common core, that we are all connected. So it gives me immense pleasure, and it's a great honour to welcome Ms. Kate Daudy to the stage.
Hello, very nice to be here. Thank you all so much for having me. I'm really just so thrilled to be here with Ella and Christian. Being here actually is part of this Everything is Not Connected project that we've been doing around the world for about 5 years, talking about the importance of disability and humankind. But in this talk, I'm going to talk a little bit about how I became an artist and what do I actually do. So I am a British woman. I was educated in the UK, very strictly. Perhaps a little bit like some of you, in fact. We were talking about this with Andrew the other day. I was brought up, we had to wear gloves, we had to sit in a certain way, with our legs crossed, and all these things. And so that was very formal English education. Then I went on and studied Chinese at university. I studied classical and modern Chinese. And then actually I worked for a long time. I was writing poems, and I had a job working for a private bank, working in the art department. And so I was the person who would go around to people's houses. They had very sort of small private clients, and we would organise for them to give donations to the nation in lieu of tax, or help people with sharing out their property when people died. Anyway, it was amazing. We saw the most extraordinary art. It was a real education in art, and I was very grateful to have that opportunity. most boring job and I left. Translating their catalogs into Chinese on a computer downstairs, like 2 floors beneath the ground in Kirk Christie's in London, for which they paid me almost nothing and told me all the time that I should be grateful. And it was shocking. And then all of this time I was writing a novel which was a prose poem set in ancient China, and I thought it was this great masterpiece. And indeed, a publishing house said they were going to publish it. On the Tuesday they said they were going to publish it, and then on the Friday they said, actually we're not. But in between the Tuesday and the Friday, I had told everyone I know that I was about to be published by Faber & Faber, the greatest publishing house in the UK. And I was so mortified when this didn't happen that I made an outfit for myself that had what had happened with this novel written on it. And so that when people ask me, how's it going with your novel, I would say, this is what happened to my novel, but I am going to talk to you about something else. This then led me to make a very beautiful, I must say, a black tie. In England, people wear black tie to go to parties. And I made a very beautiful black tie for a friend of mine, which was all embroidered and sewn and with lovely poems and things. And he went out to dinner, sat next to this art dealer who said, this is a great work of art. I think this woman who made this for you is a great artist, and I want to give her a show in China. Since I'd done Chinese at university, this was kind of quite a coincidence. So then this great Chinese art dealer came to my house, and I had only made that. And she said, you don't understand, I think you're this great artist. And asked me a million questions. And of course, it did seem to her that I was an artist, which had never occurred to me because I spent my whole childhood, perhaps like some of you who are doing interior design and graphic design, sewing and drawing and making little sculptures, and I used to unsew all the hems of all my clothes and fill them with poems and stones and feathers and leaves, and make little homes for myself inside my clothes. Anyway, in the meantime, waiting for this show in China, I had a show in Paris, which was an unlikely event for me. So I had this show in Paris that was a great success, surprisingly. And at this show in Paris, many things happened. Everything was sold, and a singer from Iceland came, who's a singer called Björk, who's really cool. And she commissioned me to do 2 costumes for her. And then also so did a singer from Canada called Rufus Wainwright, who is also, this kind of great singer. So I made costumes for them. And these tours, it was a great honor, really, because this Björk lady is known for her fantastic taste and so on. And so is Rufus. And it was really fun. I had 3 children, 3 little tiny children at the time, and so I would take care of my children all day, and then I would be flown out to some incredible concert and hang out with all these famous pop stars, and then I'd get back in time to breastfeed my children and go to bed. It was quite a sort of young motherhood time. But I didn't really want to be making costumes, even though I had some success. I knew I wanted to be an artist. So for 3 years, I only drew work on brown paper with ink that I made myself. And I made that into my diary. And this work was very interesting, beautiful work. So I say so myself. And at the end of that, I was picked up by this New York art dealer who took me to New York. And I had a show in New York, and I had a show in Aspen, Colorado. And then I started to take myself quite seriously as an artist because I had all these kind of collectors, and I was selling all this work in important places to people who really did collect art. So that was very surprising to me because really I have always considered myself to be really a poet. Now, I work in a variety of medium. I have shows, yeah, you know, all over the place. I had a successful show just recently at the Saatchi Gallery in London, which is a big contemporary art gallery in London. They had the treasure of Tutankhamun, who is the king of Egypt from many years ago. And I was invited to do the contemporary response to the treasure of Tutankhamun, which was fascinating. I had my own scholar from Oxford University who came and taught me about ancient Egypt. She taught me basic hieroglyphs, and she told me all about ancient Egyptian culture. I made friends with all the really interesting curators, even the people who do the X-rays of mummies at the British Museum, and I made masses and masses of fascinating friends, and that was really great. And as a result of that, I think I had my first sort of proper catalogue, and it was, I felt very fortunate. I also, in the meantime, was doing a lot of activism for, I suppose, human rights and human dignity, and showing that we're all connected. I made a tent, which is called Am I My Brother's Keeper, which has been touring around a lot of Europe. It was put on the national curriculum in Spain, which I was very proud of. It went to St. Paul's Cathedral in London, which is the biggest, most important church in the UK. It went to Manifesta in Palermo. It went up in Brussels, and I don't know, all these places. It was very successful. It was also, I was in the middle of discussion with the Metropolitan Museum in New York City and the Vatican and many important institutions to talk about this very important issue of how do we treat one another and how to encourage people to think about other people more. The idea was really to sort of ambush people with joy, because I feel like there's a very joyful message that that is how wonderful we each are as human beings that I wanted to convey with this work. So that was good. I've made books, I've made films. There was a film that was made about the work that I did in New York City. I wrote all over New York City about 5 or 6 years ago, that led me to be commissioned to write all over the city of Manchester. I wrote all over the city of Amman in Jordan. I wrote a lot all over London. I've done projects for Selfridges, for important museums in the UK, and lots of other different places. I made jewellery for an art gallery that commissions artists to make jewellery. Recently, I was named, I started to be involved in brands. I think some of you are quite interested in brands. So I received a message out of the blue saying that this company called Louis Vuitton had named me as one of it's their 200th anniversary. And so they nominated 200 people to be the people who they say are visionaries of our age. And so I was very fortunate to be nominated as one of those. And I made a very, very funny artwork for them, which is touring the world. Perhaps it will come even to the Middle East. Certainly at the moment I think it's in Singapore, right? It's going to Japan, South America, and around, I think. There's another brand called Loro Piana. They've nominated me to be their brand ambassador, and they subsidize a lot of my work. And our last show with Kostya was sponsored by a watch company called Rolex, who like to support the work of I don't know, like interesting artists. So it's kind of weird because I always think of myself as, well, I don't really think about myself that much, but if I were to think of myself, I think of myself really as the mother of 3 children and a person who's got a lot of friends and very fortunate in that respect. But I guess I am an artist, or at least considered to be an artist by the art world. I now make sculptures. I spent a month in the summer literally in a forge with a group of huge men who completely ignored me and I learned how to weld, I learned how to cut metal and made a sculpture that was put straight in. My first ever sculpture was put in the best sculpture museum, well, one of the 2 best sculpture museums in the world, which was a fantastic pleasure for me and for Ella. I have Ella who works with me 2 or 3 days a week, and a lot of kind of makers and people who are specialists who work outside of my studio. My everyday life is that I get up and apart from meditating and doing everything, I do mainly, I would say, a lot of admin. Being an artist, everyone thinks it's quite exciting. I mean, it is obviously very exciting inside my head, but a lot of the work I do is just sitting with Ella, working out like how we're going to get this thing to this place in such and such a time. I have a lot of very exciting projects coming up. I'm just about to have a show in a museum in Spain, which is called the Fundación Caixa, which is a great honour to have a show there. And we are running a flock of sheep through a city in Spain in September, and I'm making a very large glass sculpture which we're going to put in the middle of the city, which will be actually a sculpture. The sculpture itself will, I hope, be interesting, but what will be interesting about it is that it's working with refracted light, and so we're going to fill the entire space with the effect of the light hitting the glass sculpture. I have upcoming projects that I can't disclose because we've started to do really cool projects that we're not allowed to talk about, which is also really exciting. And I would say I don't really recommend becoming an artist because I think it's quite tough. You've got years of fretting and worrying and doubting yourself, and it can be quite lonely. But if you keep going and whatever it is that you really believe in, then I think that you can succeed. So I would never have thought that I would end up traveling around the world with my work and having the honour of doing this bell installation of Costa here, for example. But that's what happens if you just keep trying and keep believing in yourself. And I think John Irving says, keep walking past the open windows. I really am so happy to see so many girls being educated here. I come from a family of women who have always been educated to the highest level. And I never thought that things weren't possible for me because I was a girl. I just always thought I would just do whatever I want. And I'm very happy to see that here this is starting to. So I'm very, very happy and honoured to be here, and thank you very much. If anyone has any questions, please ask them to me. Oh, and thank you also to Ashley for the cup of tea. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kate. All right, I just have a quick question. What were some of the biggest challenges you faced throughout your growth in the art field?
Thank you for your question. The moment that there's two moments that come straight to mind. The first was actually showing my work to someone for the first time, because I used to do all my work just on my own, and actually, I used to make my work and put it in the bin because I didn't want to store it and I didn't want anyone to find it. And so I was really, and I still am, extremely shy, which sounds weird because I'm talking to in front of people, but I am, which is part of the reason why actually I'm an artist, because there's all these things I want to say, but I can say it through another language, and I don't have to say it myself. Or it's too complicated to say really in words, so I have to say it, writing it down. I find words sometimes very difficult because now that I have this joy of this visual language that I can try to communicate in, then words kind of come second for me, I suppose, as Ella will tell you, because I sort of say, what about that? So that was a very, very big deal for me. I really thought I was going to faint, actually, when I first had an exhibition and people came and saw it. And actually that's one of the reasons why I had one of my first big shows in New York City, because I didn't really know so many people in New York City as I did in London. And I didn't want to show my work to people I knew. The second biggest problem I ever had in my work was representation. I had a gallery who was taking just a lot of money from me. They were taking 80% from me, which was, and I didn't know. So that was very distressing, I think, because part of being an artist, maybe, I don't know, part of being me, is liking and trusting people and thinking that they're going to do the best by you. And so I don't often kind of come at people and sort of suspect their motives or check on things, or I just always imagine that people are going to be nice to me and generous and truthful and so on. So that I found very difficult, and that is part of the art world, I must say. So I had another person who, when I had the show at the Saatchi Gallery, I was paying her to find me a sponsor, and she wrote to me 2 weeks before the show and said, I haven't found you a sponsor. So I was like, oh, okay. Anyway, fortunately, I found another sponsor, but I found another sponsor by myself. So I suppose that learning curve of actually really counting only on myself, I found very difficult because it just made me feel very lonely and isolated. And also, I find that aspect of life kind of difficult. And I'm very, very blessed because really people come to me all the time with ideas and say, oh, please get me to sponsor you, or name you as this, or be really nice to you, or whatever it is. But the middle path I find really very difficult indeed, actually. But now that I've set myself on this path, I wouldn't have it any other way. And so now I'm really happy, but I did find that very difficult.
Hi. So I have a quick question that I think would resonate with everyone in this room, because it's a room full of ambitious, creative people. How do you navigate self-doubt? How do you navigate that feeling of, like, I think we can all understand that there's a certain sense of imposter syndrome. When you were expressing your own career, I noticed that you said, I don't really see myself as an artist, but I guess that's what I am. And a lot of us in this room, myself included, are writers, artists, creatives, but there's always, I would just love to hear your perspective and advice almost on how you navigate that feeling of self-doubt, or how you approach those feelings, and how do you manifest that into your creative work?
That is such an interesting question. Thank you. I am less and less plagued by self-doubt because I have faith. And I find that my faith supports me in every way, and it's also made me realize, I don't know if any of you have ever seen a choir, when everyone's singing their heart out, and then there's one person who's too cool to sing. Did you ever see that? And they're just there like, and I feel a bit like that, which is I have something to give, and so I should make sure that I give it to the best of my ability, as otherwise I'm not making the most of myself. And I think that's something that I would really like to share with you, so I'm really happy that you asked that question, because I'm full of self-doubt, but I know that if I don't take the courage to really fully be myself and do the things to the best of my ability, and now I'm surrounded with a team of fantastic people. That's another thing that I would offer as I invite you to think about. If you start employing people, if you hire people who are better than you, it's really great because that gives you somehow some kind of confidence actually, because I have the good fortune to be surrounded with a team of people who are way better than me in every field, including Ellen right here, Kostya, who's a genius really. Actually is a genius. And a lot of other makers and people who I've chosen very carefully because they're brilliant. And I think that's something that's quite reassuring actually, because they can together, if you collaborate on something, like here at the university, with this excellent team of people here, you know that it's going to work out. That self-doubt, that superficial level of self-doubt is removed. For the existential self-doubt, this question of faith. I also meditate for an hour every day, and that I find helps me to relativize. And even yesterday, I was feeling totally exhausted at about 2:15, and I sat in my room and meditated for 15 minutes, and I came out, it was okay. And I find that to be a very useful tool, as well as hard work, really. Hard work doesn't give you time to have much self-doubt, because you're just so busy that you might have a little moment of self-doubt, but actually you just don't have time for it. So that would be my, is there anything else? Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, self-doubt is a massive problem. And imposter syndrome, I feel like a complete imposter all the time. And then people put you in positions of responsibility and you're like, you must be kidding. Like, sometimes people talk to me and I literally think that they're talking to somebody else. So I think that just happens all the time.
So, for me, I usually like to stay on the safe side with art, like when with that, I like you. But I feel like you try many things. So have you ever been afraid of trying something new and it's failing, and how do you deal with that failure?
Could you say that a bit louder?
Yeah. So like, have you ever tried something new or you wanted to, and then it failed, and then how do you deal with that failure?
I fail all the time. All the time. My best friend is the waste paper basket. But that I have learned is the only way to get somewhere. Just actually failure is your best teacher. As a person, as an artist, as a friend, every failure that I get makes me stronger. Although that can seem kind of difficult at the time. But when you look back on your failures, my failures have been so many. I feel really grateful for each failure. There's an idea, somebody said something to me once about failure, which I thought was quite interesting, and obstacles, which is that you can turn around how you look at them, and when the problem or the obstacle or the failure comes, see it as a challenge, and look at it immediately as, what should I learn from this? And then And then it's very useful to have problems and obstacles and challenges because then you're equipped for next time. I'm not a very practical person, for example, and so I can have big problems, like even, I don't know, like starting my car in the morning. Sometimes I forget how my car works, and then like I have to get the kids. Oh man, I can't remember how the key, turns on in this new car, and then you're just there, just breathe, it's okay, and then you find it in the end. So that is my experience. I think probably Mr. Andrew would have always, if I had someone like Mr. Andrew in my life as a young adolescent, I really want to say this to you. Ella and I yesterday, we were chatting in the car saying how Mr. Andrew, if we'd have had somebody like Mr. Andrew to talk to when we were children, our lives would have been really different. So also that's a big lesson that I have to share, which is also to pay attention to the things that are around you that are there on offer. Because quite often you think that you can deal with things just by yourself, but you don't actually need to. Because firstly, you can have your faith, and secondly, there are people all around who would like to hear about your problems and your challenges and your obstacles, and would like to help you, like they would actually like to help you. And so if you can swallow your pride or your insecurity, because you can be so insecure that you're even insecure to ask about the problem, do you ever get that? But actually, you can always talk about it to somebody if you have a friend or a counsellor or a wise person around you. So have a little look around and see who there is, because there's more people around you than you think who would be very interested in helping you and supporting you.
Hello? Hello, it's a pleasure meeting you. My question is very surface level. I was wondering, how was it working with someone who also created as Bjork and kind of uniting both styles, yours and hers, for someone who's very eccentric as her?
Really creative people leave you alone. And so that's what happened with me. She said, here, I need a costume, I'll give you X amount of money, it needs to be ready by whatever date. And that's really great. I have great good fortune with the people who commission me to make work, which is, I'd say, well, firstly, also, I like doing collaborations. I like doing a collaboration with Posture, and right now I'm doing a collaboration, for example, even the bells out there, I asked the greatest maker in the UK of in metal and steel, who's a guy called Corin Mellor, who's a very, very, very famous designer. We made those chimes downstairs together, and it was a collaboration, but it was not the same as a collaboration where we're going to like have an argument about something. Do you see what I mean? He chose to do it with me, which was an honor, and I knew exactly what I wanted, so it was easy,
Hi, I also have a question. I wanted to ask, for you to be like a mother and an artist and someone who can like balance their time and like still have faith in your work and like goes on every day to make something new, like what gives you that type of energy? Like what drives you? What pushes you? Like I was always curious. Like I call myself an artist. I am an artist. I do paint. I just struggle with like motivating myself and pushing myself to just do it. Like it's hard. So how do you do that on a daily basis? And it's your job.
Yeah. Well, that's a really interesting question, and that's a bit the same answer as the answer to the previous question about self-doubt and imposter syndrome. I have 3 beautiful children. I had 3 children in 4 years. So, and then I didn't have much help at the time. So I was taking care of these 3 children, and I was working, and I had a big show in Paris and my baby was my little baby Theodore. He was like this big, and I took him in a papoose to Paris and was like up ladders with my little baby, and yeah, that was really fun actually. I think I have so many ideas that it's impossible to kind of keep track of all the different ideas I have. So I don't really have a problem with kind of motivating myself to do them. Also, my work has changed and developed, so when I didn't have much time or money for materials and help, then I made work out of paper and ink that I literally bought the paper from the post office, and just, for me, it's a relief to work. I find it quite difficult sometimes not to work. So we go on holidays with my family, and I'm like, whoa, now's where I kind of chill, but I find it quite difficult. So I don't have a problem with self-motivation. If I did, then I would, there's a very good book by a woman called Elizabeth Gilbert. I'll give the details to Ashley, and she can give it to you. She wrote a book called Big Magic.
I read it!
You read it?
I read it. It's such a nice book. I love it. It's one of my favorite books.
Yeah.
It's very motivating.
Yeah.
It's really good.
And somebody gave it to me. Somebody I love gave this book to me. And they said, oh, this is to help you with your creativity. And I was like, honey, that's one thing I don't need help with. And, but I read it out of respect for my friend who gave me this book. And I found it to be completely magical.
Literally absolutely. Like after reading it, it really pushes you to do something that you want to do but never had the courage to do it.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
Yeah. So I really recommend Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. That's the only self-help book I've ever read. And I found it to be completely fantastic. And as I say, back to the same thing, but talking to people, saying to someone, even just saying, I can't motivate myself to do this, and then the person goes, well, come on, Kate, get back to it. That's the thing, always communicating, telling people how you feel, and being honest with yourself and with other people, because, as I say, people around you are very supportive, and maybe your parents might not sort of support you to become an artist, but they definitely support you to be an interior designer or an engineer, and there's creativity everywhere. I always say that because people kind of go, oh, you're an artist, you're so creative, and I'm like, yeah, so are you, everyone's creative. And it just depends on the medium, right? And you can be brilliantly creative as a street sweeper, So just, and part of the joy of life is observing all of this creativity everywhere. Even, I don't know, we were laughing last night about the fruit, that had been put in these big boats and not cut up, we were just laughing about that. That was done very creatively by somebody, and I think if you can appreciate the creativity of other people, then it also helps your own creativity to flourish, because you realise that it's not just you, it's everybody. Everybody's being creative. Everybody's got self-doubt. Everybody's worried and thinks they're an imposter, and it's okay. Relax. Have faith.
Thank you.
Good morning.
I would like to say welcome to Kuwait first.
Thank you.
It's an honor to have you here as our guest. Thank you very much for visiting us. I hope you have a great time here. My question is not very important, but I would like to ask, was it hard learning the Chinese language?
Yes. Sorry, I'd like to say no, but yeah, it was really hard.
And do you think a person can perfect speaking in a language that is not his own?
Yes, definitely. I think, like with everything, if you try hard and learn and learn and learn, I would love, when I was at university, we were in the School of Oriental and African Studies. And everyone who was studying Arabic would look down on us doing Chinese because they'd say, you know, Arabic's way more complicated. And so I would never have the courage to learn Arabic. But Chinese is just a question really of learning, you know, and it's also a very beautiful language. I'm very interested in languages. I like learning languages. I even learned a bit of Aramaic during the lockdown because I thought it would be an interesting thing to do. So it's always this thing, you know, if you're interested, if you're motivated, you can do anything you want, you know. I mean, it's difficult to become an astronaut, for example, but if you can't become an astronaut, maybe you could run ground control, you know. Like if you have a very big ambition, even getting halfway is. My teacher of Chinese, he's had a very good tip on learning languages, which is to speak confidently. And if you speak confidently badly, then people will help you to learn. So you don't know how to say car, but you say metal object with 4 wheels, you sit inside and drive. Someone will say car, and then you've learned a new word. But if you just say, I can't speak this language and I don't know how to start saying what I want to say, then you will not learn. It's the same as everything. So have confidence in yourself.
So it is possible speaking like I'm Chinese?
That's very difficult, but it is possible.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure.
I think we'd all like to say thank you to Kate for the powerful messages. Okay, Kate, it's been an honour having you here speaking with our students. Our students are very, very pleased to have you here. There's a lot to take from these lectures. Please remember there's another lecture after this as well with Dr. Kosia, which will be open to our engineering students. If there's space, we will bring some other students in as well. So once again, thank you to Kate, and if students can leave through the back doors, please. Thank you.